A reading from Nehemiah chapter 1, verses 1 to 3. The words of Nehemiah, son of Hakaliah. In the month of Kislev, in the 20th year, while I was in the citadel of Susa, Hananiah, one of my brothers, came from Judah with some other men, and I questioned them about the Jewish remnant that survived the exile, and also about Jerusalem. They said to me, "Those who survived the exile and are back in the province are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire." So Nehemiah, much of the book of Nehemiah is in the first person. It's as if we're reading a diary or a journal. It makes the book, I suppose, seem quite personal. Nehemiah himself is not mentioned anywhere else in the Bible, but he'll come across as a man of God, a formidable man, a practical man. The book starts in the city of Susa, in what is now southwestern Iran, and in Nehemiah's day it was the winter capital of the Persian Empire. The date is December 446 BC, about 13 years after Nezra, and the emperor is Artaxerxes. The book of Nehemiah is the last history book in the Old Testament. It follows straight on from Ezra. In fact, it's thought that at one time the two books were one book. And so it's the last we hear of the story of the people of Israel before New Testament times. And where are they now? Well, a good number have gone back to Judah from exile in Babylon. They went first under the leadership of Zerubbabel and Joshua. We read that in Ezra chapter 2. But not all of the Jews returned. Many of them had stayed in exile, which you can read about in the book of Esther. And clearly Nehemiah's family remained. As we read in Ezra, the people of God have suffered back in Jerusalem, whereas many who'd remained in exile have flourished. Nehemiah himself has made it to be an important person in the imperial court. He's cupbearer to the Persian emperor. A cupbearer was more than just a wine taster. They could be trusted advisors of the king. The book opens with news coming to Susa from Judah. Nehemiah, we read, is keen to find out how things are going, verse 2. Now that's pretty remarkable in itself. Jerusalem is 800 miles away. Several generations have passed since the first Jews went back to Judah. Nehemiah's done well for himself in exile. Jerusalem and the people would have seemed very distant. Why bother? But bothered Nehemiah is. Nehemiah is a man who loves God and his people and his word. So of course he's going to be bothered. And as we'll see, he'll go to great lengths for his people. He first shows his concern by asking questions of Hananiah, his brother, who come up from Judah. Godly leaders are concerned and informed. However, it's one thing to be concerned and to gather information. It's another thing to be responsive. He immediately weeps and then begins to pray for the nation. His response is very similar to that of Jesus when he saw large crowds in Matthew 9. This is what Matthew said. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field." Jesus was concerned about the needs of the people, and so is Nehemiah. and they both responded in prayer. And there's a challenge here for us as well. Look, listen to this from the New Testament, Hebrews chapter 13. Continue to remember those in prison as if you were together with them in prison, and those who are mistreated as if you yourselves were suffering. How concerned are we about the church, about God's people in other places, be it compromised or be it persecuted? So do pray for other churches. Do we give our money to support gospel ministry in those places? Many agencies have prayer diaries that can help us pray for Christians in persecuted places. You see, Nehemiah may be in a comfortable, privileged position, but he's still concerned for his sisters and brothers back home. We in the West may be in a privileged position. How concerned are we about helping our brothers and sisters with less material wealth than we have? Why don't we think of others? Well, there may be many reasons. We could be not bothered because of apathy. It's easy to care only about ourselves and not about others, who we think we can't do anything about anyway. We might be unconcerned or not bothered because we fear responsibility. The more we know, the more we're responsible for. We might not be bothered because we're too busy with other things. We might be not bothered because we suffer from what's called the bystander effect. We say to ourselves, oh, someone else will take care of it. Nehemiah was wealthy. He was in the house of the emperor. He had many reasons not to care or to get involved with the problems of Israel. Yet when his brother comes back from Israel, he asks how things are going there because he cares. But not only did he care enough to ask, he cares enough to get involved. Now, the news from Jerusalem is not good. Long gone are the days of the great city of David and Solomon. The people are desperate. They're living in a tribute land to a pagan king. The city lies in ruins, and there are plenty of other problems, as we'll see. So Nehemiah is devastated at the news. He weeps over Jerusalem and he prays. And as we go through the book, we're going to come across him praying all the time. So Nehemiah, he has a concern for the people of God. He hears about them and he weeps and he turns to prayer. Do we? Are we concerned about our brothers and sisters in the family of God? Does it move us to weep and to pray for them? Does it move us to get involved? But ultimately, are we bothered?